So most people would agree that we are in a giant leadership crisis. And the World Economic Forum did a study, and 86% of the people studied or who responded to the study agreed that we are in a crisis of leadership. Now, this crisis is not just a health crisis or a political crisis, it's also a business crisis, but more than anything, it's a crisis at all levels. It's with you and me. It's up to us to do something about it. We can't wait for the politicians to save us. We can't wait for Bill Gates to save us. Goodness me, let me put that up there. We can't wait for Bill Gates to save us because he was a role model for many people, engaged in a lot of philanthropy, and then look at what's coming out. We have an unraveling. He spent 20 years rehabilitating his image, and then he spent 2 weeks destroying it. So he's going to be reinventing himself. And the problem is, are we going to trust him now going forward? We can't wait for billionaires to save us. Politicians aren't going to save us. Our health leaders aren't going to save us. Our bosses aren't going to save us. Our partners aren't going to save us. So we got to step up to the leadership challenge ourselves and do something about it. Because if anything is going to improve, we have to be the ones to do it. So 9 out of 10 employees are disengaged. Think of that on a team. 9 out of 10 people are not engaged. Wow, this is a stunning statistic because it means that when the going gets tough, people will quit. If they can find a better job somewhere else, pays a little bit of money somewhere else, or if it's difficult, which it is right now, it's difficult for all of us with COVID. And, like here in Singapore, we're going into another, we're not in a circuit breaker or lockdown fully yet. We can still go out, but the government is encouraging us not to. And, the problem is that people wearing PPE and people who are vaccinated and wearing PPE are getting infected by the new strain. So the new strain is way more infectious. And so we can all be vaccinated and still be infected. So this is a big crisis. So this working from home is going to be here to stay. And I predict, and I told Victoria that this morning, she didn't like it much, but I predict we're going to be going through this at least 5 years. 5 years. So better buckle up. We're going to learn some new skills if we're going to be going through this for 5 years. Mark my words, write down the date and time. I say from the beginning, which would be, let's say, the beginning of 2020, 5 years means 2025. We're still going to be going in and out of these kind of crises. So we've got lots of disengagement. We've got people working from home, people doing it digitally. Like, look what's happened tonight. A couple of times we have these technical challenges that puts a stop on it. And how do you respond to challenges like that? Like, it's not easy, right? You're all ready to go and then, oh. This can throw people off their game. They can get funky. They can, lose where they were. They can forget what they were going to say. They can, these technical challenges can really get in the way. Unless you're resilient and you can bounce, because that's one of the skills we all need is to be resilient and bounce. 50 to 67% of new leaders fail. Shoot, who would want to step up to the leadership challenge if you have such a high rate of failure? It is very, very high. And I'm going to share with you why I think that is, why they're failing. It's the same reason why people are disengaged. And then if you look at all the money that organizations invest in leadership development, 93% of them fail. This is not according to me. This is according to Harvard Business School. I have a report here from Harvard, somewhere here on my table, that says 93% of leadership development programs fail and why. This is a disaster because hundreds of billions of dollars are invested in training and it's missing the mark. It's not working. So even if you go and read a leadership book, how do you know if it's not in that 93% of bullshit that doesn't work? Or is there something missing? I believe there's something missing. We will talk about what that is. So who's this session for? It's for people who are leading a team, want better results. Really, that's the bottom line. You want to get better results anywhere in life, leadership is going to be the thing that does it for you. And this session is for you. What you're going to learn? Well, let's see. Why people fail, why personal leadership is the key to success in every area, how to lead people. Really, it's not that hard. Victoria and I asked Coco, who's 7 years old, what is leadership? Coco, what is leadership? And she gave us an answer, and she was clearer in her answer than most people. Hey, Victoria, you got that handy? You remember what she said? Can you tell everybody what Coco said leadership is? And I've never had a conversation with Coco and said, you know, like, hey, Coco, this is what leadership is. She just picked this up on her own, from her own observation. Just in case you're wondering, Coco is Victoria and my daughter, just in case you're wondering what the story is there. So Victoria and I are husband and wife, as well as I run my business from Goldzone, and then she is the local representative in Singapore. So our companies do business, and then we're married. So isn't that a great arrangement? So, so Victoria, what did Coco say?
Coco say a leader is someone who shows people how to do things and they follow along. Someone who guides people, someone who shows example. So these are the three definitions for her.
So she said someone who guides people, someone who sets an example, and what was the first one?
Who shows people how to do things and they follow along. She actually said follow along. So I'm like, okay, I'll write that down.
Hey, that's pretty good from a 7-year-old, isn't it?
Yeah.
Pretty good. So she knows what it means to be a leader. And then, you know, I mean, where did she learn that from? Oh, she sat through enough seminars, hope pick up something, right?
For 9 months.
So what we're going to do is look at a 7-step leadership system that you can apply in all the different areas of life to do the things we've been talking about. Make more money, get better results, have people follow you more, you know, have more engagement with people, solve tough challenges, and how to build a dream team. Because I think this is one of the most critical skills in terms of leadership, is building a dream team. If you don't have a dream team, what do you got? What's the opposite of dream team? A nightmare team. They're all going different directions, all working against each other, all bitching, whining, complaining, nobody taking responsibility. So we're going to talk about that. Some of the results you can expect if you apply this stuff we're talking about. If you step up to leadership challenge, you can make more money, you can have more time, you can have more energy. Who couldn't do with more energy? Most people are boring. Most people have no energy. They talk in a monotone like this. Imagine if we were talking in this seminar like this, talking very slowly and in a monotone with no feeling. No one's going to listen, are you? You're not going to follow someone who talks like that. And yet many leaders are like that. They need a kick in the pants, and they need to get off their asses and put in some energy, because energy is what moves people. So you can expand your career, expand your business. For the business owners here, hey, talk to me, message me after. I love to talk to business owners. Being a long-term business owner myself, I've spent much of my career helping business owners solve their toughest challenges, helping them raise capital, build dream teams, and grow the business exponentially. So even bricks and mortar, boring style businesses can grow exponentially. It's not just our tech ones. So talk to me. Except not now, later. So this is how most people's results go. If you look at this diagram, most people's results, they go up and down like this, you know, up, it's like a roller coaster, up and down, up and down. But if you want to accelerate your results where you steadily get an improvement, you're going up and down, but the trajectory is going up. This is for you, but you need a vision, because you need to know where you're going. And then you need to have a system to get you there. So the reason we have a crisis of leadership, see, this is in the present, in the middle of this diagram, which I hand drew, and sometimes hand-drawn diagrams are the best. You know, you can do nice, fancy ones, but it just comes out different when you hand draw them. We have a crisis in today's present. And, you know, you look at the past, the old way of doing things, it doesn't work anymore. You can't lead people via Zoom the way that you used to when you're all in the same room. It doesn't work. As if it worked fully before, but it particularly now doesn't work. So the old way, command and control, telling people what to do, it doesn't work. You know, what's needed in the future to succeed is different from what was needed in the past. So we need new skills, new methods, new strategies, new ways of doing things. We need new knowledge. So we need to reinvent ourselves. We need to unlearn stuff that doesn't work. We need to learn new things and apply it differently. And, you know, this is a transformation that we're talking about, because this new world where software has eaten every business is becoming a software business. So people in the software industry, for them, business is booming. People in the travel business is, sucks, fallen off a cliff. So there's certain sectors that are booming, other sectors are really struggling, and we need new skills to navigate these changes. And how do we cope with this level of stress and change on our psyches? How do we cope emotionally? So we need more emotional resilience and alacrity. This is part of the new skills of the future. Some call it emotional intelligence. I call it emotional well-being. So there's a difference between intelligence and well-being. Well-being is kind of like wellness, and wellness is different to health. We talk about mental health, but we don't talk much about emotional health. And yet agility, resourcefulness are part of your emotional health, your emotional well-being. So this is part of what we need in the future, is to make a transition from, being stuck and fixated on how things should be, accepting how they are in the present, and then looking to the future for where things are going. Oh my, look at this. Most people wait for a crisis like this before they make any change. They wait for a heart attack before they go and get healthy. I mean, isn't it too late? For many people, it's too late. And I used to quote a statistic from Singapore, and I don't think it's not really up to date, but this is how it used to be. A few years ago, 50% of the people in Singapore who had a heart attack didn't make it. So if you have a heart attack, you've got a 50-50 chance of making it, and people only take it seriously when they have a crisis, a la heart attack. Isn't it a bit late and risky to wait for that crisis to be on you? You should be making the change in advance. But that requires a vision, and a vision, you can see, transformation takes vision. And the thing that we're least interested in is vision. And I go on about vision, but we'll talk about why people are disconnected from vision, because it's such an important thing. And you look at this, the old way of doing things in the past, very slow, and in the future, we're dealing with exponential change. It's not incremental change, it's exponential. And we have accelerating acceleration, where that change is picking up speed and getting faster and faster. Accelerated acceleration. Look at the past. We had few choices. We had long careers. Change was slow. Well, it was fast compared to 100 years ago, but hey, slow compared to today and slow compared to tomorrow. We had low tech, we had fixed rules, things were simple, we had our basic needs, and leadership was top down from our role models, and there were a few leadership styles, and very information-based. Lots of information. I'll take myself off so you can see. On the right-hand side, where we're going in the future, we have an unlimited amount of choices. We have short careers, not long ones, which means instead of having a lifelong career, we have multiple careers. We have multiple different jobs that fit a different career path. And change is fast and getting faster. In the past, we had low tech. Now we got high tech. Everything is high tech. We have flexible rules instead of fixed. Things are complex instead of simple. And we have higher level needs are more important. In the past, our lower level needs were what we focused on. Now in the future, we're talking about our higher level needs. We want to have meaning and purpose and fulfillment in our lives, which is very different from the past. And, top-down leadership, now we got bottom-up leadership at every level. In the past, information. Today, we're dealing with knowledge. Tomorrow, it's all about wisdom. And I want to show you a chart here. I'm going to introduce out of order from my slides, but it's one I used to talk about in previous seminars, but I thought it'd be relevant for today because some people have asked about this. In today's reality, it's very different from years ago, because in the past, we were dealing with just a couple of generations. Well, look at how many generations are in the workforce now. We have Gen Z in the workforce, we've got millennials, and we've got Gen X, all working side by side with boomers. So we have literally 4 different generations working side by side. And the style of leadership that works, the traditionalists are a bit older, these people are more in the retired category, except, more of these traditionalists are having to work also because they haven't taken care of their pensions, so they don't have the money to retire, so they're having to work longer. So I think actually we're ending up with all 5 different generations working side by side. Less of the traditionalists. We got plenty of boomers, although many of them are retiring, or they're expected to be retiring at this time, but look what's happened, my goodness. Plenty of Gen Xers, plenty of millennials, and a lot of Gen Zs, depending on the country. Some countries are really dominated with Gen Z right now. Some are dominated with Gen X. Some are dominated with millennials, because it depends which country that you're from. So the style of leadership that used to work for these people in the past, these older generations, is very different from what we're looking at with the millennials and Gen Z. Even between the millennials and Gen Z, the style of leadership is very different. If you're in your 20s, you don't want to be told what to do. If you're a boomer, you're used to being told what to do. The boss is supposed to be giving you command and control, so you expect command and control. If you are a Gen Z and you get command and control, you are going to rebel and resist. Millennials can go either way. Gen X, I'm Gen X, and most of the people who are in this cohort along with me, they are in a command and control too. They still haven't caught up. They're old and stodgy, and I can see why a lot of these people, I know some of you are here, but this group really old and stuck. So the future belongs to the millennials and the Gen Z, and then we got what comes after Z is Generation A, isn't it? So Victoria and our children are Generation A. So here we are Gen X. I'm at the beginning of Gen X. Victoria's at the end of Gen X. And then the people we work with, the most fun people to work with, I tell you, is Millennial and Gen Z. Actually, Generation A are the best, the children, because they don't have all these preconceived things. So you got to adjust your leadership style to succeed with these people, and you have to lead differently based on the generation that you're dealing with. You have to talk differently to the boomers than you do the Gen Z. If you use one standard approach with all of them, you are going to run into friction, and it ain't going to work. You're going to have some challenges. Any thoughts, comments, or questions about this before we go on with the next piece?
I have a question.
Yes, Victoria.
So I know a lot of people actually they do talk about leading different generation. I think this is a great slide for us to understand how we operate based on where we come from. And I think I have people who are leading. We have people here who are leading different types of team, and that they all have a different generation. So specifically, we have people who are leading sales team, and we also have people who are leading a non-sales team. How would you differentiate between someone leading sales team in this different generation versus someone leading a non-sales team between these generations? Because I think they are quite different, right? Hey, Harrison, can't hear you.
You're saying if the sales team is made up of mixed generations. I think you have to explain to them, the people in different generations, you have to do a lot more talking and explaining. And I think this is one of the changes that a lot of people resist, is that they don't want to take the time to discuss things with people. But Gen Z and millennials, you have to sit around and include them in the decisions that impact them. Boomers, Gen X, and traditionalists, it's not as necessary. Whereas millennials and Gen Z, you got to sit around and discuss anything and any changes that impact them. You have to have a lot more two-way dialogue. If you don't have two-way dialogue, they're not going to buy in, they're not going to be engaged, they're not going to be enrolled. But if you can get their buy-in, get them engaged, get them enrolled, you are tapping an enormous talent. So in terms of leading a team versus leading a sales team, to me, leadership is about sales. And if you understand sales, a lot of people misunderstand it. So let me just say here, I come from a sales career. I started my career as an engineer, and then I moved into sales in the technology industry. I was the top salesman in the country, and I have a long sales career of exceeding my target every year I was in sales. So, and I've trained thousands of salespeople over the years. And one of the biggest resistance that people have is to sales. And what I say is, number one, Calling it sales is the wrong term, because sales is a transaction. What you're actually doing is helping people to get what they want through communication and through asking questions. What do you need? What are your challenges? And how can I help you to get what you need, to get what you want faster than you would on your own? And that is a very different approach to sales. That is leadership. You have to lead people and you have to lead the conversation. So to me, the skill that's required from sales, but sales is the transaction. So what you're doing is you're actually enrolling and influencing and engaging people to make a positive decision in your favor or whatever is in their best interests. If you're self-interested and all you want to do is sell people what you have and what you're doing from your point of view, then you're losing touch with it's all about them, it's not about you. And it's about helping others succeed. So sales management is very different than doing sales. Sales management is about leadership because you succeed by your team succeeding. So then you're moving from, as a salesperson, it's about you succeeding, whereas when you're leading the team, it's about everybody else succeeding. And then everybody brings their preconceived ideas, their resistance, their attitudes, their beliefs, their fixed mindset or growth mindset, whatever that mindset is, they bring that to the team. And then as the team leader, your goal is to support them in a way that helps them to succeed. That's very different, isn't it? That answer your question, Victoria?
Yeah, that's great. Unless some people here have a further thing to add or ask. So we have Anastasia. She asked I think you are probably Gen Z or late millennials, I'm not sure. But as an executive with strong leadership potential, how do I manage my older generation bosses but preserve my desire for freedom? I'm rebellious and my leaders are controlling. I think that's a great question that allows the people in different, even within this group, we have people from different generations.
Well, I think you have to understand that you're leading up, down, sideways, you lead in every direction. So you're leading people who you report to. So if you're a business leader and you have investors, you have to lead those investors. If you have suppliers and vendors, you have to lead them. And I have a slide coming up that talks exactly about that you have to lead in every direction. It's like 360. In all directions, you have to lead. So you have to understand what they need in order for them to be happy and then be willing to give it to them, as long as it doesn't compromise your core values. But a lot of people get fixated and they say, this is the way that I do it, and then everybody has to do it the way I do it. Well, that's very fixated, isn't it? Because the future is about being flexible, which means you have the flexibility to adjust your style of leadership to the situation and to the person. So if you're leading a traditionalist, you're going to do it differently than if you're leading Gen Z. So then the key to that is to understand who you're leading and what their needs are. And that's an enrollment skill. That's a sales skill, is to understand who you're leading, what their needs are, and then help them to get it. Your job is to help them to get it. And it's that simple.
So you're saying that we got to be flexible.
You got to be flexible. I can't go around expecting everyone else to be flexible. I have to be flexible because the only person I can control is me. I can only control me. I'm responsible for me. I can change my attitude. I can change my approach. I can choose the language. I can choose the style. I can choose the volume. I can choose the emotion. I can choose what I focus on, and then lead people by example and by giving them what they want. And then it's easy. It's so easy if you do it that way. And allow me to share more of what that looks like as we go through this session, eh?
We have a comment,
yes.
Reply to Anastasia. Saravanan say that influence them to subscribe to the notion of reverse mentoring, hot topic these days in coaching and mentoring. You have any comment about that?
Yeah, I agree. It's about influencing people. And in order to influence people, you have to understand where they're at and what their needs are. And most people are too fixated on their own needs and what they want. And the more you can subordinate your ego to what the other person needs, then you're going to be of service to everybody, isn't it? So this subject of leadership, it is personal leadership is the key to the whole thing, but you have market leadership for your business, product leadership, client leadership, service leadership, creative leadership, talent leadership, financial leadership. These all require leadership. And yet most people just think of leadership as a team or the person winning a race. That's how people think about it. But if you look at your product, you are your own product. So you have to lead yourself like you are a team. So you have to look at your assets and your liabilities, focus on your assets, mitigate your liabilities, and then lead in the different areas. And that's why it impacts all areas of life. So whatever problem you have, leadership is the solution to step up and take more leadership. This is really the bottom line. And leadership is all about people. So we have to understand more about people, what makes them tick, what are their hopes, their dreams, their goals, their aspirations. And how do you understand other people if you don't understand yourself? How do you understand other people if you don't understand yourself? How do you understand other people if you don't understand yourself? So you're a person, you have to understand what makes you tick, what trips you up. What are your hopes, dreams, goals, and aspirations? And how does that interface with other people's hopes, dreams, goals, and aspirations? What causes them challenges? How can you help them? What can you bring to the table? So leadership is about taking charge. That means taking charge of the problem and of the solution. And wouldn't a dream team be made up of people who take charge of problems and solutions? So then if you're the leader, they're not abdicating all the problems to you because they're solving them all before they get to you. How many of you would like that? How many of you would like your team to be solving the problems before it gets to you? And how many of you have that? A team that takes ownership of all the problems? Or do you have a team that, puts all the problems up to the boss? All the problems come to you to solve. How many of you have that? You're getting all the problems. So this is part of what makes a dream team, isn't it? But first, you got to lead yourself, because if you can't lead yourself, how are you going to lead anyone else? That's why personal leadership is about you and how you lead you, and how from that place you can lead anybody because you're leading by example. And let's talk about this subject of dream team. Because I don't know about you, but I don't want a functional team. I don't want a boring team. I don't want an ordinary team. I don't want a dysfunctional team. I want a dream team. It's the only kind of team that is worth having is a dream team. But what does a dream team include? Look at this. A dream team includes these people: employees, or you could say team members. It includes contractors. So we might be working with contractors over Zoom or remotely. They're working from home. So the dream team includes contractors. It includes vendors, partners, colleagues. These are people on the same level as you. It includes investors, the community that you serve, the environment that you're living in and that you're impacted by. It includes your clients and your family. So your family makes up part of your dream team. And that's why, as a leader, we have to learn how to lead our family. We can't just tell them what to do. That's the old style that doesn't work anymore. Just telling people what to do. There's a place for that. But on a dream team, I'm going to give you a description of a dream team. How many of you would like that? A description of a dream team. What does a dream team look like? Because it includes all these roles here. These are people that are part of the dream team, but how many of you include your vendors on the dream team? That your vendor is as much on the dream team as your family is, as your clients are. But many people in sales, they just look at clients, or they have employees and colleagues, and then they have clients, and they don't include the environment, the community, the investors, the contractors, the vendors. Because imagine you get all the vendors who have bought into your vision, and then when you have a problem, whose problem is it? It's not just your problem, it's all these people's problem. So there's the founder of Federal Express. Federal Express was founded many, many years ago, and a very successful freight company worldwide, particularly in the States. And at the time they started, they had UPS as competition. They had the post office, the US post office. So they started, and if you look at the problems they had, they looked at their business. And the founder of FedEx, this is what he said. He said, if you're going to borrow money, borrow as much as you can from the bank, because the bank wants you to succeed more than you do, because the more money you owe them, the better. And yet most people don't think of the bank like that. They see the bank as an opposing force, not on your dream team. So your dream team includes your lawyers. It includes your coaches, your trainers, all your vendors, which include your accountant. I mentioned lawyer, it's your accountant, your banker, your all the vendors who provide you with products and services in order for you to provide products and services to whoever you serve. These are all part of your dream team. So the more you include all of them, the more engagement you have at all levels. Then when you have a problem, it's not just yours to solve. You're not the only one who's going to stress about it, because that's one of the things that is different in the future compared to the past. In the past, everybody looked at themselves as being responsible for the problem, whereas in the future, we're talking the dream team. Everybody's got a stake in the game. Everybody's part of the problem and part of the solution. So let's look at what are the characteristics of a dream team. So number one characteristic of a dream team, whether it's a vendor, a partner, or an employee, or a teammate, you want them to be responsible. And yet most people don't know what responsible is, because when something goes wrong, they blame others. Responsible means that you take ownership of your outcomes. You take ownership of your problems, and then you set about solving them. So the characteristics of a dream team member, number one is to be responsible. The second one is to be self-motivated, because you can't motivate anyone. And many of you listed motivation in the polling as being your number one problem that you want to solve, was motivation. But you can't motivate people. You can only motivate yourself. And then if you're building a dream team, find people who are already motivated and aligned with your vision, then you don't have to motivate them. You don't have to inspire them. You don't have to make them aware. You don't have to discipline them. You don't have to correct them. You don't have to teach them leadership. You don't have to tell them what to be done, because they don't sit around waiting for instructions. They don't tell you it's not my job. They take action. If there's a bit of paper on the floor, they will pick it up. They'll pick up the trash. They'll straighten the curtains. They'll straighten the chairs without being told, and they act like an owner. Self-aware, self-disciplined, self-correcting. Who would like to tell me, does anyone have an example of a company that has this dream team as their ideal characteristic? And they do it in all their hiring. Anyone have an example of a company that does it? If you do, just unmute yourself and tell us. Do you have an example of a mega-sized company that has these characteristics for their team, and they hire people who meet this criteria, or they don't hire them? Then they pay them top of market. So whatever the market rate is for any position on the team, they meet that. Pretty amazing, isn't it? Anyone got an example? Who would like an example? I'll tell you the company, you all know it. Google might be close. Someone commented Google.
Yeah.
Here it is. I tell you, this is Netflix. Netflix has this listed on their career website. You go to netflix.com, go down to about the company, click on careers, and they word it slightly different, because this is our version of it, but this is pretty close. This is Netflix. They're doing it. So if you wonder if it has applicability to business, Netflix staked their entire reputation on this, and how are they doing? Their business is booming, isn't it? And aren't they producing hit after hit after hit? Haven't they been going through exponential growth? And you might say that it's just because of the pandemic. It isn't. It's not just the pandemic, because they've been doing this for years. They've been focused on a dream team. And if someone provides, okay results, they ask them to leave. They pay them off and have them leave if they are doing acceptable results, if they're delivering, because they want everybody to be extraordinary. They want a team full of stars. And what would happen to your team if your standard or your vision, this comes directly from Netflix vision. It's a vision manifested in the operating procedures of the company. So if you're clear what your vision is, you can articulate things like this. And then when you're putting people on the team, wouldn't it be easier if your team was made up of people like this? Wouldn't it? Easier. I mean, if they take responsibility, you don't have to. If they're self-aware, you don't have to be pointing out all their faults all the time, what they could improve, because they're going to do it themselves. They're self-aware. They're self-disciplined. So I'll tell you another part of Netflix, what they do, self-disciplined. They don't have a vacation policy. What? You can take as much vacation as you want. They don't have a limit to how much vacation you can take. What? And yet I bet you most people would think that's ridiculous. Who would have a no vacation policy? But hey, it works. It works for them. So let's get down to the old style is command and control, giving everybody a policy where you don't trust people. And the right-hand side, you've got, you trust people, they're responsible, you empower them, and you focus on personal power. This list that I'm showing you here, this is the personal power list. And you look on the right-hand side of this slide, they use persuasion, expert knowledge, democratic. It's the new paradigm of leadership where you empower the individual, you trust them, and you don't need to have a lot of rules. On the left-hand side with position power, you need a lot of rules. And so you're telling people what to do, autocratic, domination, command and control. On the right-hand side, personal power, the vision is alive in every individual, because here's the vision right there. You hire people on the team who shared the vision. They shared these characteristics. And why personal leadership is so important is because if you want a team made up of people with these characteristics, don't you have to have them yourself? You do, right? So on the left, old style, used to work in the past, doesn't work in the future. On the right side, you have personal power. This is what it's required to succeed in the future. So this statement from The Little Prince really encapsulates everything. By the way, I got this from Netflix too. So we've done some work with Netflix in the past. That's why I like to quote them. Other than, I'm obsessed with doing reruns of shows on Netflix. You can watch stuff back to back. I think they're my favorite streaming service. Fantastic. So let me read this to you. If you want to build a ship, don't drum up the men or women and gather wood and divide the work and give orders and tell everybody what to do. Instead, teach them to yearn for the endless, vast sea. And when they have in their hearts a yearning for the sea, they will self-organize, they will self-direct, and they will do the shipbuilding. They'll get the right people in the right roles doing the right things, because look at that. That's your dream team in action, isn't it? You have these people, you just need to point to the ocean and describe it a little bit, and they're going to be engaged, and this is what they're going to do. They're going to build the ships, they're going to envision them, and you don't have to be standing around telling them what to do. So let's look at leadership styles and how that applies. So you want a dream team. On the left are your standard leadership theories or styles. And many of you would be familiar with all of these, if not most of them. And a lot of leadership training and coaching and support is focused on one or a few of these leadership theories or styles because they compete with each other. So one training company might focus on democratic leadership, another one might be, charismatic leadership. And you can explore the nuances and the difference between them. But new paradigm leadership, where you're influencing people and where you're sharing a common vision with them, the new paradigm leadership means that you use the right style for the right situation. Every one of these theories and styles has a place. And the question is what type of organization you have, what type of team you have, and what style would work best for the team that you have. So Victoria, any comments about this?
So based on what you just shared, Harrison,
Yep.
I'm just thinking in my mind, how would you, because you say based on what type of organization you have, what type of team you have, and what situation you have, you got to adjust your leadership style, right? How is that different? How is that different from the situation leadership theory here that we are looking at?
How is it different? Well, the difference is that you're going to use the right theory for the right situation. So there's a place for bureaucratic leadership with a formal hierarchy, standard rules, accountability and responsibility. And you don't try and use bureaucratic leadership with Generation Z. It doesn't work, or millennials. Whereas if you want people to comply, maybe in the audit department, you don't want them being too creative. So you want a bureaucracy in certain departments. You don't want them being very creative. And in your customer service department, you don't want them being transactional. You want them to be more servant style leadership. And laissez-faire works when you're dealing with a bunch of experts. Whereas if you're dealing with non-experts, you have to do a lot more command and control. And, you know, a lot of people love charismatic leaders. And if you think of a charismatic leader, who's the first person that comes to mind? Number one charismatic leader that CNN loves to bitch about. Charismatic leader. You'd say Donald Trump's a charismatic leader, wouldn't you? And CNN's kind of boring without him. We need to bring him back so we can have some more excitement.
Saravana say Obama. He's quite charismatic too. Different kind of.
Yeah, you would say Obama's charismatic. Would you say Steve Jobs was charismatic?
Yes, they all are quite charismatic. Ratan Tata in India.
Right?
Yeah.
So, you know, it's not about writing charismatic off, because how many of you are charismatic? Maybe some of you could do with more charisma, right? What is it that has charisma? Do they play it safe? Do they walk the line? Or do they, you know, stay there safe and talk in a monotone? Or are they controversial and get in your face and challenge you? And do you learn more from somebody who holds back giving you feedback, or somebody who really lets you have it, who you can really hear the truth from? Something to think about. So let's look at the number one reason that people are disengaged. Let's take a look at that. Of the 4 different levels of life, we use these 4 levels in our leadership, and our definition of health has spiritual health, mental health, emotional health, and physical health. We look at all 4 levels of health, and I'm going to show you that in a moment. But what happens is that many of us are fixated and focused on the physical and mental dimensions, and we neglect our emotional health and our spiritual health. And spiritual health, for many people, they just see it as religion, but this is way beyond religion. This is dealing with your purpose and meaning and raison d'etre, your reason for being, and your purpose for what you're doing, and having some meaning on your job and in your life. Now, Gen Z and millennials are particularly interested in having a purpose and having an impact, and they want every dollar they spend. This is the majority of them. Obviously, it's not all of them, but many millennials and Gen Z, much more than previous generations, are interested in investing to have an impact and on purchasing to have an impact. So they want to know that the company they're buying from is not polluting the environment, is not engaged with slave labor. So this is their spiritual dimension playing out, whereas the older generations don't care so much about that. Younger generations do. And in the past, our basic needs would mean getting our physical needs met, some emotional, plenty of mental, but very little spiritual. And we leave the spiritual to the priests and to the religions and the churches and the temples, versus having a direct relationship with that aspect of life, which is your spiritual dimension. And for us at Goldzone, we support people to have all 4 levels in alignment, because that's when you get the most results in life. It's when you're the most happy, fulfilled, successful on all levels, is when you have alignment between your spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical aspects. So let's take a look at what that looks like. Spiritual, that's self-realization, self-actualization, transcendence, your purpose, your meaning, your significance, your contribution, your altruism, a sense of unity where you're united, your oneness. And that's where you have expansion and wholeness, and you are clear on your sense of place in the universe. So people in the future want this from their work. In the past, not so important, but today and in the future, people want this. And this is why people are disengaged, is because they are not engaged spiritually. And they're not engaged emotionally, because if you look at all the emotional levels there, we're mentally engaged, but we're not emotionally engaged. And you can see physical, your basics, food, clothing, shelter, health, well-being, justice is on your basic physical level. And that's where most people focus, on the physical. Whereas your emotional needs are what drive the team. What has the team in alignment and on fire is fulfilling their physical needs. That means, like on a pay, if you want a dream team, the pay is just the basic level that's needed. Then they want to feel engaged in the work. They want to have a result, an emotional connection to it, and they want to feel like their contribution is seen and accepted and acknowledged, and that it makes a difference. So they want that feedback emotionally. Then they want to be mentally stimulated. They want to feel like they have a future, to have growth and develop their knowledge and their creativity and be problem solvers and, you know, have some variety and feel like they're exploring. This is on the mental level. And then on the spiritual level, it's the, you know, the self-realization, contribution, expansion, sense of oneness. So when you have all four levels engaged, this is the formula of what it looks like. Most people don't know this, but spiritual level is where your vision is. And that's why so few people are connected to a vision, or can articulate the vision, or can articulate what their ideal scene looks like. Because most people are focused on what they don't want. They can see clearly what they don't want, but they have a hard time seeing what they do want. So they can see what they don't want, but they can't see what they do want, because the spiritual, the V part, the vision is missing. The more connected you are spiritually, the easier it is to connect, share, inspire people with a vision. The mental is where you come up with a plan, the strategy. The vision tells you where you're going. The plan on the mental level tells you how you're going to do it, your strategy to do it. And the energy, that's the E part of the equation, is where your energy. So if you're not emotionally well, if you're emotionally disconnected, then you're not going to have the energy to implement the plan, because the plan is put into action on the physical level. All plans are only as good as their ability to be executed. That's the A, the action part is where you execute the plan, and then you see the results at the end. But what happens for many people is they focus on the results, and they're not happy with the results, and they don't like where they are, and they don't like what they're getting. But instead of taking ownership of it, taking responsibility for it, it's too easy to look to the team to be the fault, to look to other people and say it's their fault, they're the ones, they need to change. But as a leader, you're the one who has to change. And what you need to change is you need to engage on all four levels. Here we would say 5, because the 5th level is your results. So you focus on the results that you want, and it all begins with having a clear vision. Because how do you know if you're succeeding? How do you know what success looks like if you don't have a clear vision of what the outcome is that you're wanting to create? That's the vision. That's why the vision is so important. So we spend a lot of time helping people to crystallize the vision. And you don't need to be telling people what to do if they know where they're going. So it's like that ship example. If people are yearning for the open sea and they want to get out there as a team, then they're going to say, we need a boat. And then they're going to self-organize to build the boat. And if they're all taking responsibility, ownership, self-motivated, self-disciplined, self-aware, then your job as a leader is really to articulate the vision, and then to help people realize that vision as a group and as individuals. That's the key right there. So we can go through many examples of companies that do this, that have a vision, and why the vision is so powerful. Go back to FedEx. You know, I was talking about FedEx. When they started, they ran out of money. They nearly went out of business, and they had secretaries and clerks doing crazy things like booking a private aircraft just for one package to deliver the vision of the company. And, you know, it upset management in the beginning, but then they got a lot more business out of it. And then, did you know that FedEx, and I have a personal relationship with one of the original founders of FedEx. So I've been friends with him for about 25 years. So I heard these stories directly from him. Very inspiring stories that, make your eyes water. For example, they would have pilots on the planes who they didn't have enough money to pay for fuel. So the sheriff would come to stop the plane from taking off because they needed to pay for the fuel for the aircraft to do the deliveries before they could take off. So the sheriff was there on the tarmac in his car in front, stopping the plane from taking off. So the pilot took out his personal credit card and paid for the fuel for the aircraft so that they could take off and deliver their packages. Or other stories, this was in the very beginning when they were out of money, other stories where drivers who were doing the deliveries in their trucks, they didn't have money for fuel, so they took their personal watch to the hock shop, hocked their watch to get money to put fuel in the truck so they could deliver the packages. And so many stories like that. Another one is where the courier, they had a broken package that was leaking, and what they did is they opened the package and saw that there was a sweater with a bottle of wine in it, and the bottle of wine had broken and wet everything. So the courier took the package home, they laundered in their own home the sweater, went and bought a bottle of wine, repackaged it, and delivered it to the client the next day. That's engagement. That's a dream team taking ownership. Everybody felt like an owner of the vision, an owner of the business. Now, these are just straight up employees. So they weren't owners, but they acted like owners. How many of you would like a team of people like that who will go to that lengths? And not that you would want to run out of money and have your aircraft sitting on the runway, but wouldn't you want a team of people who are willing to do that? I'm going to tell you another example because I think it's very inspiring how the vision really does drive everything. Another example from FedEx was when they, once again, in the beginning, they ran out of money so often in the beginning because all startup businesses are capital hungry and run through a lot of capital. So they grew in a 10-year period from zero to $1 billion in 10 years. And at the time, this was the biggest success story in the country, in the US at the time. And so in the early days when they ran out of money, they had, over the weekend, they had a meeting, and if they didn't raise $1 million by Monday morning, they were out of business. So in a last desperate attempt, the lawyers arranged for a meeting with an investor in Chicago, and they flew there to have the meeting. And if they didn't walk out with a check for $1 million, they'd have to close down. How many of you would feel a little bit of pressure? You feel a bit of pressure, right? So this was the founder of FedEx, Fred Smith. And they went to the meeting with this investor and they walked out with a cashier's check for $1 million. They did it in a 1-hour meeting. So a 1-hour meeting, they walked out with a cashier's check for $1 million, saved the company. And the rest is history. But this is the vision in action. And what that investor bought is he bought the rights to invest in 80% of the company for $1 million. So he couldn't buy 80% of the company for $1 million, but he bought the rights to buy up to 80% of the company. So they did a creative deal there and did it all in an hour. Now, that's vision in action. And I would say that this is following the formula from vision to they had a plan, they had a strategy, they had everybody engaged, they had them emotionally engaged on the team, they took action and they got the results. And yet so few of us aren't clear on our visions, on our ideal scene that we want in the end. Anyone want to comment, add or share or say anything about that? There's a few real life examples, very inspiring. Anyone want to say anything? If you want to say something, you can say something. If not, it's okay too.
Great example. Yes, I think it's a great example too. It's very inspiring how everyone is engaged with the company's vision and how it really runs across the board. It's in line with what you were just sharing about the building the ship. Instead of getting them to do something, help them to understand the vision, and let the right people be part of it, and then the wrong people, don't have to be part of it.
What Netflix does is, if they have the wrong people on the team, what they do is they pay them off. So they have them leave. And so there's no hard feelings because they make it worth their while to leave. And there's a few companies that do that. I think it's very inspiring. So I don't know about you, but I want a marriage. I want a relationship. I want a business. I want a family that is aligned with all 5 levels here. I want to be inspired and engaged at the highest level because life is short. Just recently, I saw on Facebook, my friend, he's a captain, and I saw on Facebook, can't even speak, Facebook, goodness me, on Facebook, I saw a post that said, "In memoriam of the captain." And I said, "What?" Sure. So I looked at his Facebook, didn't see anything. In memoriam. Did he use the wrong word? Did he, what's going on? And I thought, oh my God, maybe he died. So I tried to call him and I got a disconnected number. And I thought, oh. So it turns out that he passed away. Just like that, boom, gone. Because I went and made some inquiries with other mutual friends and found out that he passed away 3 weeks ago. And I'm like, whoa. And this period with COVID, so many of us are losing loved ones. And if ever there was a time when life was short, now would be it. So don't put up with a dead-end job, a dead-end career, a dead-end business, a dead-end relationship. Have that tough conversation with your partner and say, hey, let's have an extraordinary relationship. Let's have a dream team here. Have the conversation with your children. Clear the air. We do with our children. We have them share what they're feeling about different things, and we really listen to them. We include them in decisions that impact them, and we talk it through, and we take the time. But that time is well worth it. And, the last time I talked to my friend, Captain, every time I talk to people these days, I never know if it's going to be the last time I talk to them. I have another friend who started having seizures, and they nearly didn't make it. So this is so common now. We're all touched by health more than ever. So, what can I say? Don't take it for granted. Don't put up with it. If you're in the wrong role, if you're with the wrong team member, do something about it. So let's we shift gears a little bit, and I show you the same model with Goldzone's system here, because we have these color zones that we use to measure life force. And the more of these areas you have in alignment, the more life force you have. So the higher your life force, the less you have to work at something, the easier it is, the more flow you have, and the lower you are on the scale, the more struggle you have. So you have flow at the top and struggle at the bottom. And most people, what they do is they focus on their physical health and they neglect their emotional health, and I mentioned the spiritual health. So if you look at this, we have one life. We have all the areas are interconnected with each other. So if we have a problem in our physical health, that problem probably originated in our spiritual dynamic and then flowed on down through our mental, emotional, before it showed up in the physical. So a lot of us, our problems, we recognize them when they're physical, but they started a lot earlier. So if I have time today, I'll go through and show you a bit more how that's connected and how you can measure where you're at. But if you look at the physical on the right, and a lot of us are under stress. So you can see yellow zone, if you go across, stressed. If this stress persists and you have chronic stress, a lot of unsolved problems, then it compromises your immunity. When you have compromised immunity, you're more susceptible to common infections like colds and flus and COVID-19. The higher you are on the scale of physical health, wellness, vitality, and regenerative, the less at effect you are of common viruses. You have a much higher immunity. But many of us are suffering from chronic stress, from unsolved problems, and difficult situations. So our immunity gets compromised. And the longer that we have this high stress situation, the more our immunity is compromised and we get more and more illness. And if you look at the emotional health one and mental health on the orange zone, look where worry is, because a lot of us are worried about our children, worried about our jobs, worried about our businesses, worried about our income, worried about our health. So the more we worry, the more emotionally we have fear is the predominant emotion, and that causes low immunity. And then for a lot of us who have ritualistic spiritual practices, we're just going through the motions, but we're not connected to the real purpose or meaning of it. If we have a holistic relationship spiritually, that pulls up all of our areas and we don't worry. Nobody worries when you have a holistic spiritual dynamic. You don't worry much. Very little. So if you're worrying a lot, then it tells you that you're in that orange zone for all the period that you're worrying. And then that's driven by fear. So your emotional driver is fear. And then that's going to make you sick. You stay there long enough, you're going to get sick. Anyway, I'd like to spend more time talking about this, but for the purpose of tonight, we don't have the time to get into it. But I can talk about this for days on end. And what we like to do in our programs is we have these zones on all the different key dynamics of life, career, business, relationship, health, and leadership. We've got 40 of these dynamics just for leadership. And so we help people to measure where you are now, where you want to be in the future, help you connect with a vision, and then measure the gap. And then what we do once we measure the gap is we help you to come up with your key leverage point. So you only have to do one thing. You don't have to do 100 things. You just have to do one thing at a time. So if you're clear what your vision is, then you're clear where you are today, you will see a gap. So if I can get my reverse hands going here. Here's the future. Here's where I am today. So this is where I am today, and this is the future. So between those two is a gap. Your vision is where you want to go. Your current reality is where you are today. And what we do is we help people to identify what one thing you need to do to bridge that gap in the shortest period of time. So you can take this amount of time and compress it down to this much. So we have systems, tools, and knowledge. And the reason I'm talking so much and I'm sharing this stuff with you, and I know some of you find it, going to be a little bit boring. That's okay, I don't take it personally. Our ability to concentrate goes up as you are higher in these zones. As you have more life force, you can concentrate for hours, days, weeks, months, years, decades. I've been working on projects for multiple decades. I can concentrate for long periods of time. But the more you are under stress, the less you can concentrate. So we got to get the stress out. We got to solve the problems that are creating the stress. So what we do is we help people to solve those problems in the short period of time. Because we work with so many people, we know what the cause of the problems is, what the drivers are. So if you have a problem at home, you're not getting on with your partner, if you're arguing or not talking, this will impact your leadership at work. On the converse, if you have a funky relationship with people at work, this is going to cause you stress. It's going to have you worrying. It's going to reduce your performance in all areas, and eventually will lead to chronic illness because of the chronic stress and underperformance and an inability to envision, because vision comes from the prefrontal cortex. This part of the brain is the first part to shut down when you're under stress. Your visioning part and your planning part and your creativity shuts down when you're under stress. So if you have a problem at work, it will impact your relationship at home. And then, the saying, you take it out on the kids, or you kick the dog because you're upset about something from work. So what we have to do in the future is we have to look at our lives holistically and look at our well-being. And we have to look at what problems are causing us stress, and then we have to solve them. And what we are very good at is helping you solve real world problems. If it's a money problem, we can help you solve that. If it's a relationship problem, we can help you solve that. If you have the wrong people on the team, you want to know who you should move on and who you should include and who you should invest in and who you shouldn't, we can help you with that. If you want to build a dream team and create your own set of criteria, we can help you with that. If you have a problem in your relationship at home, hey, we can help you with that, because a lot of our clients, we do relationship support. We do coaching with them. We do dispute resolution. We even help people have divorces if that's the right way they want to go. One couple, we saved them, they had a few $1 million worth of net worth, and you can save them from having a divorce. You can save them 50% of their net worth. So let's say, just for argument's sake, they have a $2 million net worth, they have a divorce, then they got $1 million each, besides all the bickering and all the problems that they have. So if you can resolve that problem, you can save them $1 million. That's a lot of money to save. Look at, well, I don't want to talk about Bill Gates, but people put up with these problems and they wait till a crisis before they do something about it. But if you have a vision of what you want to create in the end, it's very easy to solve these problems. And, let's take a look at.
Harrison.
Yes.
I think Kieran wanted to ask a question before the health chart. So would you like to take that now or?
Sure, now, anytime. I can take questions anytime. Go ahead.
Kieran.
Hey.
Yeah. Hi.
Happy to see you.
Happy to see you too. So I was asking for the previous one when we were talking about vision. So it's very easy to define vision when we are defining a product or in organization. But when you made me think of the personal vision, and I was trying to articulate that in my mind. And I thought I'll ask you to give me an example of like what a personal vision could look like. Like, what's your personal vision? Because I think it's a bit difficult to visualize personal vision.
Oh, that's a great question. No one has ever asked me that before. And I've been asked a lot of questions. So I'm going to give you an example of different visions I've had at different stages in my life. Would that be right?
Sure.
So here's one that I created in my 20s, is that I looked around at the people in my life, my colleagues, etc. And remember I mentioned that I was the top salesman in my company, and I was making in the top, couple of % of income in the country. So I was making a lot of money for my age. I was in my mid-20s. I was unhappy with where I was at. And I looked at my colleagues and I says, I don't want a life like them. Many of them were 20 years or more older than me. And I looked at their lives. I talked to them at length, and I said, this is not what I want. So the first part of the vision is to know what we don't want. Many people are clear on what they don't want, but they don't know what they do want. So what I did was I said, how do I know what kind of career I want? How do I know what that looks like? I don't know. How do I know where I want to live? Because I was living in Sydney, Australia at the time. I don't know where I want to live. I don't know what kind of career. And, I've reached this level of success in my current career, but I don't know if I want to keep doing this. My bosses weren't inspiring. I had some terrible role models who were very disappointing to me. And, I was very disillusioned with that. And I said, I want a different kind of life. So what I did was I said, okay, so if I'm going to create a vision for my life, what does that look like? I don't know. I got blank. And that's what many people do. Like you said, it's easy to have a product vision, but how do you have a personal vision or a team vision? It's the same process for a team vision or a business vision, any kind of vision. So in this case, it's a personal vision. So I said, I don't know where I want to live. Then how do I know if this is the best place in the world to live? Wherever you go in the world, everybody says this is the best place to live. You go to Los Angeles, they all say, oh, this is the best. You go to Hawaii, oh, this is the best. You go to Singapore, everyone definitely thinks somewhere else is the best. It's a joke. And, wherever you go, people think it's the best. So I said, okay, I don't know what the best is. How do I know if I don't check it out? So I said, okay, I'm going to take my money and I'm going to travel the world and look for the best place to live. So that's what I did. I took a year off. I quit my job. I had already sold my house. I sold my car. I unfortunately had gone through a divorce, which is one of the hardest things I went through. And that's what had me questioning my life. and wanting to create a vision for the rest of my life instead of just having, what I had by default, because that's how most of us do it. We just do it by default. So I determined that I was going to travel the whole world for a year to figure out where I wanted to live and what I wanted to do. And so you can't create a vision when you're in the dark, in the closet alone. You know what I'm saying? How do you create a vision when you're in the dark alone? There's nothing to inspire you. How do you know what kind of eggs that you like to eat? I'm thinking of that movie Runaway Bride. It's probably a bit old for most of you, but in this, Julia Roberts was acting, and she was a bride, and she'd always eaten the kind of eggs that her husband ate. So her husband or boyfriend, I think it was her boyfriend. So her new husband asked her what kind of eggs she liked, and she couldn't tell him. So what he did was he got the menu, and he got the restaurant or the hotel or whatever to cook every single kind of eggs and to put them on the table so she could taste all the kind of eggs to determine what kind of eggs she liked. Then she could have a vision for eggs in her life. That's one example. So I wanted a vision for what kind of work that I wanted to do. So I created the vision for what I'm doing now in that year when I was traveling. I didn't know how I was going to do it because many of us limit our vision to what we think we can do versus what is possible. But the more that we connect to our spiritual self, the more that, we have possibility. So I said, I want to live on a tropical island. I sat in a park in London and I allowed myself to dream because many of us don't dream. I said, if I had no limit to my possibilities, I want to travel the world. And since then, I've spent literally, in one period of my life, I spent 10 years of full-time travel in first class travel, staying in 5-star hotels all over the world as part of my vision that I created for myself, exploring. So I've been to 500 cities and 54 different countries or something, and met so many people along the way that have inspired me. And so I created a vision for my life, and then my business is a extension of my life vision. But what a lot of people do is that their life vision is an extension of their business. So they have it upside down. To me, you have to be clear what you want from your life, and then your career is an extension of your life. Your business is an extension of your life. The skills that you develop, the places you go, and what you do is an extension of that. And the more you're connected spiritually, the more you can envision a future that is not limited by what you think you can do. Because the how part is the mental strategy part, which comes after you're clear what you want to do, where you want to go. So I explored the world, talked to a lot of people, and created my vision from that. I said, I want to live in a tropical island. I want to start businesses. I've started 20 since then, 20 different businesses, which came out of my vision because I'm creative. I'm an entrepreneur. I like to research. I love helping people. And so all of that has come into my business career. I've started a software company, a design company, investment company, a wellness center, medical clinic, and more. And these things came out of my vision for extraordinary that became, what Goldzone is all about, is helping people to get in touch with what's possible for them if they let go of how am I going to do it and this sort of thing. So what happened is that Anju and I, when we originally created the vision for Goldzone, we had worked with many business owners and leaders and professionals, and most people, they're focused on, what's wrong and where they are now. Just like our medical system focuses on disease more than health and wellness. So there's very little attention for if you have all your basic needs met. If you have no disease, what does wellness and vitality and longevity look like? Having resilience, and what does emotional well-being look like versus being angry, disillusioned, depressed, unmotivated? What does it look like when you're on fire with passion, when you can express yourself, when you can engage with people, when you have relationships that work? What's an ideal relationship look like? What does an ideal life look like? And so what we did is, with the Optima Zones, that color system that I was just sharing with you, I'm going to share more of it in a moment so that you can see the other areas. was to help people to see what's possible and to tap that vision for themselves. And then to create a dream life, a dream vision, a dream career. And, you know, it all revolves around what you love to do. I'm doing what I love to do so that my work is not like work, it's actually like play. And, you know, I work all day, every day, because to me, it's play. It's not work, it's play. And that doesn't mean that everything I do is easy or enjoyable. But what I do is, because I have that relationship with my work, that I'm doing my passion, what I do is I look for how to make it fun. So I have to do accounting, I have to work with accountants and lawyers and deal with clients who aren't always the easiest. And then some of them are dealing with multi-million-dollar lawsuits. So I'm helping them with that. I'm helping them with their stress and their relationships. And some of the work can be quite challenging, but because I'm engaged with a vision for it, it all is part of my design for my ideal life, which is live, work, play, not to have a differentiation, not to have a work life and a home life, but to have my ideal life in all areas that work for me the way that I want them to. And if I'm going to have a relationship, I want the best relationship possible. But if I don't know what that looks like, how do I know if I have the best or not? And most of us put up with dead-end jobs, careers, businesses, and relationships because we never saw any role models or never saw what was possible. So that's the long and the short of it. That's, you know, part of the answer to your question. And sorry, Victoria's laughing at me because I can talk about that all day long, but, you know, 2 hours. But lucky for you, you and I are going to have a lot more time together, so I can get into a lot more of that for you. And the vision is the most important, because how do you know what to do if you're not clear where you're going? So knowing where you're going is the number one secret to success in all areas of life. And leadership, how do you know what style of leadership that you should be using if you don't know where you're going or what your ideal scene is?
Harrison, I have a question.
Yes.
I suspect some people will have this question in their mind. Oh, but I don't have 1 year of money to go and explore the world.
Well, you can like, for example, how do you know what kind of car you want to buy? What you do is you go window shopping for cars, isn't it? So even before you can afford a car, you can go look at what the possibilities are. And how do you know you wouldn't want a Rolls Royce? How do you know you wouldn't want a Hyundai or a Toyota, or what type of Toyota, or a Tesla or a Mercedes or a BMW? How do you know what kind of car suits you if you didn't stay open to the possibility, go and look at a Rolls Royce and look at all the different options, compare the prices, and then say which one resonates with you the most, with who you see yourself as being? So then you can choose your car based on that. And then, you know, you go and you say, okay, so I want to buy a BMW. How am I going to pay for it? And then that's where most people will stop. Or maybe you want a Rolls Royce. If you really love Rolls Royces, because they do have some really great qualities, and riding in a Rolls Royce is a hell of a lot more fun than many other cars. If you never entertain the possibility, maybe you don't have to buy a brand new one. Maybe you can get a secondhand one. Maybe you can, you know, there's many different possibilities. But what a lot of people do is that they create the vision of what they want from their limitations instead of from the possibilities. And that's why taking charge of your leadership is the key to that. Make sense?
Yeah, and I think that's the same as employee, working with a certain group of people where I feel that I can only have a team that is at a certain level. So like having self-motivated team could be something that is unimaginable for a lot of people.
Yes, definitely. Most people don't believe that that is possible, and yet there are people doing it. So if it's possible for someone else, why is it not possible for us? If an extraordinary relationship is possible for other people, why not possible for us? But most of us don't have good role models for what an ideal relationship would look like, or an ideal career, or ideal leadership. But if someone demonstrated new paradigm leadership to you, and you saw how people responded to you, and you saw how engaging and enrolling and effective it is very effective. That's the most important thing. Does it work? Yes or no? But you have to see some examples of it, because most people have plenty of examples of bad leadership, bad role models, isn't it? Boy, Victoria, I'm looking at the time, eh? We're already nearly up at our couple of hours, and we've hardly gone through. Wow. Victoria, given the time that we have, what would you like me to focus on? Because there's so many different pieces
I
that
think
we could.
yeah, given that a lot of people here, they came because they want to understand the 7 types of leaders. I think quite a few of them want to know where they are at, and understanding the people that they are leading. I think that will be the next thing to talk about, to help them understand more.
Yeah, let's do that. So let's look at the 7, well, there's 7 types of vision, 7 types of paradigms, 7 mindsets. Many of us have heard of a growth mindset and a fixed mindset. This is only 2 out of 7. And for the 7 types of people, let's take a look at an overview of the 7 types of people. Then we'll look at the 7 types of leaders and see if we can help you to identify what type of leader you are. And then the 7 types of followers, because there's a relationship between the leader and the follower. Because if a leader uses command and control, could the follower use more of a creative style with somebody who's commanding and controlling? No. So someone who's commanding and controlling tells you exactly the way they want it and how they want it and when they want it. It puts you in a box that you end up responding in a certain way. So many of us as leaders, we use a certain style of leadership that's not effective. And then we don't get the results that we want, and we blame the people that we're leading rather than say, well, how many different styles of leadership have I tried before I conclude that it's them and not me? So what this system does is it helps you to see what the different possibilities are, and then you can identify where you might be as a leader. So each of these color zones represents a general result or an emotional state. And most of us have a particular emotional state that we're in most of the time. So if we're stressed a lot and we're worried a lot, that will have us in the orange zone. If we're enthusiastic a lot and we're feeling positive and optimistic and engaged, that will have us in the green zone. If we're self-expressed and we're passionate and we're living and doing our passion, then that will have us in the blue zone. And if we are doing a lot of command and control and we're competing with a lot of people and we see everything as a competition, that will be the yellow zone. If we have a command and control style boss who's telling us what to do and who has strict rules about things, that will have us as a follower being in the what zone? Orange zone. And if we're in reaction a lot to the different circumstances and events in life, this reaction is often in the red zone. And if we're numb, monotone, don't see the need to change, talk in a flat voice, unresponsive, not emotionally connected, and there's chaos around us, that would be in the brown zone. So the ideal is that depending on what's going on in our life, we will be up and down these particular zones given what's happening. But the higher we are on these zones, the more resilient we are. The lower we are on these zones, the more fixated, rigid, slow, and the more struggle we have. So if you want more flow in your life, you want to be as high on these zones as possible, and then ask yourself, like, what's that worth to me? And what's the cost of the zone that I'm in? Because if you're struggling in an area, it's probably because you got some stuck energy in one of these lower zones. And what we do is help you identify that. So for this purpose, I'm going to give you the overview. So if you look at the 7 types of people, I've given you the overview. Let's look at how that relates to the leaders. So you can see the Goldzone is your vision, and so few people do this, but you can see many examples of visionary leaders around the world. And, in our longer programs, we can get into who they are, what they do, how they do it, what makes them unique, what are the characteristics they have, and how you can incorporate more of that in your life and how you can tap more of an inspiring vision. Then the blue zone is about creativity and passion and innovation and collaboration. And this zone is where, you know, you're really expressing from your passion. And so few people are passionate about what they're doing and can communicate passionately. How many would agree that passion is rare, and that most people can, if they tap passion, it's once in a while, but it's not every day, all day. And it's not that I'm in that zone every day and all day, but whenever I'm working or doing things or engaging with people, my goal is to be at a minimum, to be green zone, which is enthusiastic and to use influence with people. So some people can be enthusiastic, like a lot of salespeople can be enthusiastic for 5 minutes when they're focused on getting something, but most of their leadership is not green zone enthusiasm based. So the goal here is to be more green zone, blue zone, and gold zone most of the time. And when something goes wrong or you have some life event or whatever, you can dip down into the lower zones, but you don't stay there. Whereas some people, you know, they're brown zone in many areas of life and don't have a lot of joy and passion and fulfillment, because fulfillment begins in green zone. So a lot of people are very successful in the yellow zone, but they don't feel fulfilled because fulfillment begins in the green zone. So autocratic, dominating, commanding, and controlling style leadership is lacking fulfillment. Like, you might win the championship, you might win a gold medal, but you're not going to feel the win. You're not going to be happy with it. You're going to be chasing the next goal, the next success in order to feel it. How many can relate to what I'm talking about there? That you can be successful, but don't feel fulfilled. Okay, thank you. Because that's what that zone is, yellow zone. So the reason I'm going into a bit of description here is to help you to ask yourself, or for you to ask yourself where you are based on what I'm sharing about these different zones, so you can identify yourself. So if you have fear stop you a lot from taking action or taking risks or doing anything new, if fear stops you, you know that that's orange zone. That's where you avoid risk, you avoid commitment, you can't make a decision. So let's imagine for a moment that we didn't have COVID going on and we could travel. So if you could make a decision, like if I said to you all, who wants to fly with me to Paris? Once we finish the session, we're going to take a flight to Paris. How many of you are free enough, confident enough that you could make that decision on the spur of the moment and fly off to Paris, catch the midnight flight? Obviously, we're not flying now because of COVID, but pre-COVID, and I've asked this of a lot of people, and I've actually done it. We sat in the office on Friday, and that night we're on the plane to Paris. But a lot of people, when they hear a suggestion like that, or let's go buy a new car, you know, they're, oh, I've got to check 100 cars first. I've got to check with the boss. I've got to check with my wife, you know. I've got to check with, not me, but a lot of people got to check with their boss at home, you know. And they have this, you know, my wife won't let me, or my husband wouldn't let me. Well, does that sound like a partnership to you? No. If you can't make a decision, if you're paralyzed by fear, then you're either orange zone or lower. So fear stops you, whereas yellow zone, you can make decisions like that. Yellow zone, you make decisions fast, you take action fast, and you do a lot through force. You use force to do things. Green zone, you use enthusiasm, which is, it's got a lot of energy to it, but enthusiasm is way more effective than putting force in, because the problem with force is when you put the force in, it works, but if you take the force off, it stops working. So a lot of us have that on our teams, right? When we are there, the team performs, and when we're gone, the team stops performing. So everybody take a moment and think about, okay, Greece works for me too. I had Greek food for lunch today, and it had me dreaming of going back to Greece. I would love to go to Greece. But wherever it is, we could sit around and decide, we can all have a poll and choose that the majority vote, and then we could all go. But most people have to check with somebody, have to think about it, worried about making the wrong decision. This tells you what type of leader you are. Whereas if you're in a yellow zone, green zone, blue zone, or gold zone as a leader, you can make a decision like that very fast, because you know what your vision is, you know where you're going, and you know how that fits in with it. Whereas when you're avoiding risk, you want to avoid mistakes. And that's the problem with a lot of people. When you're working in a command and control style environment, your followers are going to avoid mistakes, which means you're not going to have a lot of creativity. And imagine everybody's working from home, right? And you've got a team full of people who are avoiding mistakes, who won't speak up. Look at this orange zone in terms of followers. So your followers won't speak up. They're slow. They produce mediocre results, and they don't want to make mistakes and don't want to look bad. So you imagine that for a moment. How many of you have teams like that, where the team won't speak up and are slow to change, slow to make decisions, and won't speak up? Hands up. I'm sure more of you will have that, right? Where you have a team who won't speak up. So this orange zone is the effect of having a command and control style leadership. So then you'll have this orange zone behavior. So if you want to get an orange zone person to speak up, what you got to do is lead them by the zone that they're in. So the most effective type of leadership is green zone and above. But if you're in emergency, you want to use yellow zone leadership in emergency. So it's the right type of leadership for the right situation. If you have a team of experts, you don't want to do command and control. You don't want to tell them what to do if they're experts. If you have a team of newbies and beginners, then you identify where they are on the zones, and you got to tell them what to do. You got to direct, you got to explain, you got to encourage, you got to nurture, you got to, draw them out. You got to encourage them to speak up. You got to make them feel safe. You got to focus on emotional safety, psychological safety on the team. So it's a lot more work. If you can build a dream team of people who aren't afraid of speaking up, who can say what they want, who can challenge authority, who can make decisions, who can express themselves, say what they want, willing to give other people what they want, it's a lot less work for you. If you're putting in a lot of work as a team leader, then you got to look at, you're the one who put the team together. If you did, then you put together a team who has all those problems that you're experiencing. You as the leader put them together, and you as the leader, if you take charge of it, then maybe you need to make some changes and get different people on the team. Because a lot of us build teams that are a reflection of us, which is why when we take ownership of the problems that we have, we're going to get different outcomes. Victoria, you want to say something?
Sorry, I didn't realize I wasn't on mute. Nothing.
Well, why don't you say something since you were...
I was just replying to Kieran. Yes, so yeah, what were you saying? What are you going
by the way, I just want to say about, you've been to Paris, but maybe Greece. Oh, the other thing I want to say about that is you haven't been to Paris with me, because I love to take people and show them around secret Paris. I am the best Parisian tour guide. I've spent, last time I was in Paris, I stayed there for 6 months. So I know Paris like... the
best part of Paris.
I know the best parts of Paris. No one goes to Paris with me, and I've taken many people on week-long, month-long trips to Paris, and there's nothing like it. I know exactly where to take people to blow your mind, to give you a possibility, to show you what's possible that most people never thought of before. So yes, Victoria, back to the... So the key here is that if a team leader, Victoria, if a team leader is having challenges with the team,
yeah,
how is that team a reflection of the leadership?
Well, I think it's
that if you want the team to change, the leadership has to change.
Yep.
Which is you, if you're the team leader.
Yep.
Because your results, I know it's not a popular subject that your results are a reflection of you, is it?
Nope. It's actually quite, from that point of view, it's tough. However, when you get it, right, I'm speaking from personal experience and professional experience, when I get it, it's like magic happen. People respond to me very differently. But when I don't see that, right, when I don't see that, it feels like a struggle. It feels like, why are people responding me a certain way which is the way that I didn't want versus the way that I want. And part of that is because I'm always, if I keep thinking that, oh, why are they like this, why are they like that, nothing is going to change.
Yep.
And I can change their face, I can change their race, I can change where they're coming from, where they come from, nothing changed. But one small shift in my understanding what part of my communication is, or what part of my lack of clarity is getting the result that I'm getting. Just one small change can make a big difference here. I'm like, what happened? That's the feeling. But at the same time, I knew what happened because I made some changes. And the changes really doesn't have to be that big.
Do you think most people have a direct relationship to, if they make changes, that their results change?
No, most people actually don't. This is one of the hardest things to see.
So the thing is about these zones is if you are brown zone, red zone, orange zone, you are blaming other people to one degree or another for your outcomes.
Or finding excuses.
Right. So we have the scale of results that we help people with.
Yeah.
That shows what level of responsibility that they're taking. And it's very difficult for people who are blaming others for their outcomes to step out of that and to take ownership and responsibility. And yet those are the best performing teams, the championship teams, where you have a team of champions.
Yeah.
And where everybody's taking responsibility. So one of the things we do in our programs is very gently and lovingly help people to see where they're blaming and where they can take ownership of their results so they can get a better outcome, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. It actually is a very safe environment to look at that, and to very loving and loving and gentle. We don't force people to look at things that might not be ready, but over time with education, with understanding, with coaching, it all will fall into pieces along the way. And when someone is ready to have a breakthrough, it's actually quite easy. It can be very fast.
So from a dream team, there's also a dream client, isn't there? So someone who really wants their result is a much easier client than to work with than the person who's resisting, is kind of okay with a mediocre result or a mediocre outcome, is happy being average and ordinary, versus a client who's committed to extraordinary. If someone is committed to extraordinary, is looking for a solution to the problem, then they're easy to help, versus someone who has a payoff for the problem staying in place. Because for leadership, a lot of people have a payoff for dysfunction. So they keep the dysfunction in place.
Yeah, but they don't even know they have a payoff.
Right.
They might not like it. It's like the comfort zone, the first video that you played about comfort zone.
Right.
Sometimes the comfort zone we are in, it's not because we are comfortable, but because we are used to it. And we are so used to it that we feel that it's normal.
Right.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we do in our programs is help people see, touch, taste, and feel what a different possibility is like. What it's like to be on a dream team, what it's like to be in an environment that is aesthetically uplifting, inspiring, engaging, and beautiful, and that includes music and movement and spontaneity, and where you can be yourself. Because I think a lot of environments are forcing us to be a certain way and don't acknowledge our individuality. Whereas what we do is encourage people to express themselves and let themselves out of the box, come out of the cage.
Yeah. And to be okay with whatever it is.
So in terms of coaching, why would someone want to have a coach, and why would they want a coach from Goldzone in your point of view, Victoria, versus, there's many different coaches. I'm going to answer my own question in terms of if you want a coach who is actually a business leader and who actually does it, then you would say that I'm in one of the top categories of people that you'd want to work with, because I've started so many businesses and have been involved on many different levels. Like I've run software teams, sales teams, engineering teams, design teams.
Win big.
What's that?
You have won big and lost big too.
Yes, that's true. I've also lost a lot of money, so I've had to work through the losses.
Yes.
So a a lot of coaches, they do a weekend coach program, learn how to coach, read one book, and then want to go and help people. And I think it's great that they get started and are following their passion and whatnot. But as a customer, I don't want to hire a coach who just did a weekend course. Like, I literally have been doing this, helping people since the 90s. So we're in 2021. So we're already talking coming up to 30 years. And I've met many, many different people, from scientists, engineers, business owners, billionaires, artists, musicians, all kinds of people in all kinds of walks of life. So from that basis, we have a lot of experience that can help someone to fast track and short circuit their outcomes, isn't it?
Yeah. Also, a lot of a big part of what we do is help people to unlearn some of the information that are not serving them anymore. That I would say that it's quite unique. It's very unique to us.
So what would you say is the core essence, in one answer, what unlearning is, and why would you want it?
Well, if I have a, let's say for example, I keep repeating certain result that I don't want.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand why I keep doing that. So in my example, like years ago, before I attended Goldzone, I hit my glass ceiling in my career. So I was doing really well, but I just couldn't hit beyond what I was doing. And that was in my mid-20s. I was in sales also. So, and I didn't know why I was hitting that glass ceiling, and went to a lot of technical training, trying to gain more confidence through having more knowledge. But none amount of that new knowledge helped me, because helped me to go beyond my glass ceiling. It does give me a little bit more confidence, but the part that I couldn't do was to approach the level of a quality client that I was wanting, so that I can have more leverage in my sales. So then I felt like I felt like I was stuck. And then the other thing is also I felt like every year, just now you were talking about fulfillment.
Mm-hmm.
So I was very good at what I was doing. So every year I hit my goal, hit the company's goal, travel every year. But every year I feel like a reset. So then I'm like, what was missing in my life that I'm not aware of? How come I wasn't as happy as I would like to be? So essentially understanding. So what was your question again? I'm trying to go back to
Unlearning. How would
unlearning. Okay.
How would you describe the unlearning?
You're right. So the unlearning part, the part that helped me with unlearning, was to understand, instead of just acquiring knowledge after knowledge and information after information, what I did was I happened to know about Goldzone at that time. What Goldzone helped me, what you and Andrew helped me, and the team helped me, was to see the part of me that is invisible to me, that is the invisible part of me that is creating hit the glass ceiling. And I could see that part. So you bring the invisible to the visible for me, so that I can unlearn some of the part that is causing my lack of confidence and why I was the way I was. So unlearning that is actually a lot to do with my belief, my background, my how I see myself and other people. So then that helped me to realize why I was having, even though earning good income, but still didn't have the confidence that I thought I would have.
So you were unlearning, where you were stuck.
Yes.
And you would say, like, because we use life force as a measure, that you can measure your life force.
Yes.
And then find areas where your life force is stuck, so you can liberate that and have more life force available to you.
Yeah, correct.
And so unlearning is letting go of these old behaviors, old ideas,
Yes.
and old experiences, particularly because a lot of what stresses us are unsolved problems where we had some failure in the past and we got some life force stuck in this past failure.
Yeah.
And then it's not available to us to do our new projects.
Yeah.
And this is a normal thing that happens when we fail at something, is a lot of people fail and they have no understanding of how to recover from that failure and how to rehabilitate themselves and get the lesson from it.
Yeah.
Because any failure that we have, like whether it's a divorce or a failure on the job, or we lose money, or we have a health crisis, these things, and then we make up stuff about it, and then we make a decision going forward that we'll never let that happen again. Like we get hurt in a relationship and we say, oh, never let that never let anyone in, never let them get close to me, or we get hurt by a team member, that we nurture someone for years, hoping that their performance will turn around, and then they end up quitting, and we've invested all this time and energy in having that team member succeed. So this is a lot of what leaders go through as a challenge, isn't it?
Yes. Well, and also failure in investment, you lose money in investment, and say, oh, I will never invest again. Investment is not for me. So those are the things that people make up their mind based on some past experience.
Like if you invest in the stock market, 100,000, and then you lost all the money, and then you say, I'm never going to invest in the stock market again, is what you're talking about as an example. And then what you don't do is take ownership and say, what did I invest in? Why did I invest? Was I clear on my outcome? Or was I just following the crowd and investing in something popular and then not surprised why I lost money? So instead of giving up on the vision of investing in the stock market, then we can rehabilitate ourselves and go and get in again wiser from the experience, learning from the mistakes that we made, and then have a better outcome.
Yeah. There are many examples.
Like I wish I had invested in Netflix 10 years ago, because it's been on a rocket ship since then, isn't it?
Yeah.
And many companies are like that. And so if we have these past experiences where things didn't work out for us, and then we make up things and stop ourselves, you would say that that's orange zone, when we have this failure that stops us, and then we miss out on so many opportunities because we formed the wrong conclusion about what happened.
Yeah, exactly.
And what they say is the key to success, and I agree with it, is that the key to success is to fail and get up. Each time you get knocked down, you get up, you learn from the experience, and you do it differently, and you don't give up on the goal or the vision or the dream. You keep going. And the only failure is the failure when you give up, when you quit and you stop trying. Yes. And yet so many of us have these negative leadership experiences where we have a bad experience or a negative outcome, and then we make our mind up, oh, I'm not a leader. Oh, it's too hard. Oh, it's too difficult. Oh, there's too much to learn. Oh, it's too intimidating. I don't have the qualities. I don't have the characteristics. I wasn't born that way. And all these excuses stop us from really going for it.
Yeah. And I think
so we help people get over all of that so they can engage fully with, whatever area it is, right?
Yes. I think the other thing that stop people is also when my vision is not clear, when I don't know where I'm heading, it's very easy to give up. Whereas if you have a clear vision, whether it's it comes back to personal vision, and then your business, your business and career vision, whichever you want to do, that vision itself is what is going to drive the resilience in us also.
Mm.
Because without that vision, everything can look really hard and nothing seems to work.
Mm. Yes.
Everything got to be very in Singapore we say sui, meaning everything you got to have all the stars got to align, but the stars will never align until I'm clear. That's the problem.
The stars line up when you go and line them up.
Yeah, exactly.
The sky is full of stars, so it's a matter of which ones you are resonating with, and then lining that up and going for it, and instead of being passive, just waiting for it to automatically happen.
Yeah.
Like the go and make it happen happens from the yellow zone and the green zone. And many of us have examples in our lives where we've gone and made things happen.
Yeah. I thought when you talk about that, remind me of go with the flow. A lot of people like to say go with the flow, right? And I remember you saying to someone that, well, a dead fish can go with the flow too. So if you are a dead fish that go with the flow, then you are still a dead fish.
Yep. Because going with the flow, to me, what it means is that you get clear where you want to go, and you head in that direction, and you look for the most effective route or strategy to get there, and you adjust along the way, and you go with the flow. Because if you turn left and you run into a dead end, you turn around and go right and see if that'll get you there. It's like going through a maze. You keep trying until you find the way through the maze. But at the beginning of the maze, you can easily give up when you run into a dead end if you don't have a clear picture of where you want to go. So if your ideal scene is on the other side of the maze, you're going to keep looking for the route through, and going with the flow means that this going left isn't flowing, maybe going right isn't flowing, so going in this direction is flowing, so I'll go in that direction until it stops flowing. then change course and adjust along the way until I arrive at my ultimate destination, which is my dream vision. But if you don't have a dream vision, then you're going to give up every time you run into an obstacle. You're going to say, oh, this is not meant to be. This is not in my destiny because I ran into an obstacle. So then you're led by the obstacles and led by the limitations instead of led by the possibility of what you want to create for your life or for your outcome. For example, if you're a team leader, then what's the purpose of your team? Why has this team come together? What's the ideal scene look like for the team? And the clearer you are on that team vision, then the easier it is to align the team as to where everybody's going. Yet if you're not clear on the vision, how do you align everybody? You're going to be resorting to telling everybody what to do to get it done instead of helping people solve their challenges along the way by being a coach, being a trainer, being a guide, being a mentor, being a walk the talk inspiration for them to follow. So that's different, isn't it?
Yeah.
So Victoria, you gave me a list of a few things that people said they wanted. Is there anything on this list that we haven't covered so far? Because we actually did cover a lot, and yes, there's like 100 other slides we didn't go through, but that doesn't matter because it's not about going through everything, is it?
Yeah, I think one of the two things that I like to discuss is really unless other people, if you guys have any questions, I know VG say how can I convince Upward to see my viewpoint. I think this answer is similar to when Anastasia asked about.
I can answer that quickly. Is that to have your leadership above you consider your viewpoint, you have to begin by considering theirs. And if you ask yourself, what is their viewpoint and why do they have it? And if you're not clear on the answer to that question, you go and ask them. And you go and get to know them and understand why they are the way they are, what their viewpoint on the world is, what they get out of it, why they're attached to that way, or are they attached? Are they open to considering other alternatives? And then to frame what I'm wanting them to do in a way that benefits them. So if I can figure out what their drivers are, what their motivations are, and what their interests are, and I can show them, because anyone who's yellow zone above, you show them a personal benefit for them, they'll do anything.
Yeah.
But it's up to us to figure out what it is that is going to be in their interest. So I've done this many times when I was working for large corporations, and I had a boss and a boss's boss and a boss's boss's boss, and you have to enroll all the different levels depending on the scale of what you want to do, and you have to have a relationship with all the levels where it's not about breaking the chain of command and pissing people off and upsetting people. It's a skill to learn and develop. These are all skills that can be learned.
Yeah,
they're easy to teach with a coach too, because I've coached people one-on-one who have been dealing with their boss, and how they say it how they make their request can make a big difference between getting a yes and getting a no.
Yeah.
Like I've helped some people double their income by going, making changes in that area. So it's definitely exciting when you use leadership in a different way to look at it. Coaching can be very effective. If you spend a few $1,000s for coaching and then you can double your income, is that a good return on investment? Pretty good, isn't it?
Yeah.
Better than buying Netflix shares.
Well, that's just the beginning, double the income. If you get a double in a lifetime, that's a great investment.
That's right. If you double this year, then there's next year and the next year. And if you keep increasing it, then you got an exponential return on it.
Yeah. So I think does that answer your question, VG? I think it's VDR, right? You can text or you can say something. And so I think there are a few questions that I thought it will be helpful. So how do you develop more certainty, confidence, and clarity in a fast changing environment? Because a lot of people are very, the environment does impact a lot of fear of
the answer to this one is very easy, because you invest in your personal power. And you know how before we were looking at personal power, if you're attached to position power, then the power comes externally from your position. Whereas if you invest in personal power, you have the power no matter what your position is. And a lot of people, they don't know how to develop personal power. But to me, this is the most valuable power that you can develop. And just give me one sec. I'm going to put this on full screen. So if you look at this diagram, your personal power on the right, doesn't matter what happens with COVID or your health or the environment or your boss or your clients or technology or how many changes happen in a short period of time. When you have the power inside you and it's developed by developing your skills, your capability, your alacrity, your emotional well-being, because resilience and adaptability and flexibility comes from your emotional well-being. And this is an area that's underdeveloped. Emotionally is underdeveloped. So the more that you can develop emotional alacrity and well-being, the more that you have resilience in that area, the less at effect of things in the environment that you are. And this is the key, is to develop your personal power, which means, like in my case, when I travel, which is not very much these days, not at all, but when I used to travel a lot, I designed my life that I would travel for work and for pleasure, all wrapped into one. So I would never do those, airport to airport for business stuff. That's very uninteresting. I would travel to places that I wanted to work in and visit personally. And then I will never tell people what my role is. People say, what do you do? And I just, I would give them a glib response. And they want my business card. I haven't given out a business card for 10 years. I don't give them out. I don't tell people who I am or what I do or nothing. And what I find is that I get treated like a VIP everywhere I go. And how does that happen when people don't know who I am? So it's not my position or money or status that has me treated like a VVIP. There's some personal power that I have in how I engage with people, talk to people, treat people, and the places I go and the things that I do. It communicates way more than anything that I say. That's personal power. So when things go wrong, it's your personal power that you leverage, not your position power. But the key is to be able to use position power when you need it. Make sense? You're muted, huh?
Yes. So if you have both position power and personal power, that's the best of everything.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I also want to say that there's a lot of really great coaches out there, a lot of great leadership training, leadership books that you can go and you can attend. Dale Carnegie, CCL, lots of different leadership organizations that can support you professionally. And the difference with Goldzone is that it's our holistic nature. We can help you with your money. We can help you with your career, your self-expression, with your emotional well-being. We help you with your relationships. We help you with your presentation, with your personal, how you express and communicate. And we are much more personal and more holistic, and that doesn't suit everybody. Some people should go to other organizations and might find them more suitable. So it's not that Goldzone is the solution to everything. I think if you want to have a separation in your life where you have more professional and less personal, we are not for you, because we are very personal. We value honesty, openness, integrity, open discussion. There's no discussion off limits for us. We've handled the most difficult conversations people can have in their lives. And we help people with their health and take emergency action to mobilize teams of doctors, even emergency airlifts and emergency surgeries. And, I personally spent lots of time in hospitals supporting people, helping to save their life, and to be the go-between between individuals and the medical establishment. And, so this is the style of leadership that if you want an organization to help you on an individual personal level, who is on your team as a dream team player, who's committed to your best interests, then we're the people for you. If you want to help increase your income, resolve past losses, help you to rehabilitate broken marriages, career failures, we can help you. For example, I was really moved by a story of this guy who he used to work as a sales manager in a large multinational, and he couldn't handle the stress and the pressure, so he quit and went and got another job that was less pressure but didn't make as much money. So his family expenses were twice what his pay was from his base pay, but he needed to perform in order to make the same amount of money. So he was losing money because he couldn't handle the pressure. And I'm like, you know, we can help people like that, because we can take a look and say, what was the pressure that you had on the corporate job? What was causing that pressure? What was the problem that you weren't solving? Because most stress and pressure is unresolved problems. So if we help you to identify the problem, the root cause of it, and I'll show you a diagram just to make that clearer on how we work with people. You might recognize this one from root cause analysis, because I told you my training is as an engineer, so I think like an engineer. So if you look at this diagram, we help people to identify the real cause of the problem rather than by looking at the symptoms, because the symptoms for this guy were he was feeling stressed and couldn't handle the pressure on his corporate job. So he quit and went and took a lower paying job, but it was under the amount, the pay was less than he needed to run his family. So then he had even worse financial pressure. And so when we work with a client like that, we will help them to identify what the real problem was. So if you look at this, job and income at risk is a symptom. The low mood is a symptom. The stress is a symptom. And is it the stress causing the job and income at risk? Or is it the boss causing it? Or is it the low performance that's causing it? Or is it they have food allergies? You know, like what's going on here that's causing the problem? And in actual fact, if you look at the left-hand side, in this case, we identify, this is a true example, this is a real person. The real cause of their problems was that they had, they needed to go to the optometrist and upgrade their prescription because they were sitting in a chair having headaches and migraines, which was affecting every area of their performance on the job. So everything was spiraling down because of just a simple prescription problem. So, they could change their chair, change their diet, blame the stress, look at their low mood and all this. And it turns out that the real cause of this problem is actually their glasses. So the glasses is the real cause. And a lot of people, they try and fix the wrong problem because they don't have the technology, the tools, the know-how to identify these root causes. So this guy who was making less money, we've had many clients like that we've helped them to identify what the real causes of the stress, what the real drivers are, so that they can make the correct changes. So in that case, what I was telling you about, I would help that person to step through what the root causes were so that they can get their money back on track. So the money looked like was a symptom. And, if you try and fix money with money, you're not going to fix the real cause of the problem. You're dealing with the symptoms. And then, was the pressure at work, what was the real cause of that? So anyway, that I could talk about that all day long too. So I guess where I was going with this is that there's a lot of great coaches, great training, and great organizational support out there. So there's no shortage of help. But our particular kind of help is much more holistic and integrated. So, and Victoria, is there anything else we could start to wrap this up? Because
I think just one last thing. I think a lot of people have a confusion between confused between soft skill and hard skill. So I want to just, are you able to just share with everyone what's the purpose of soft skill? What's the purpose of hard skill? What do they both give to the people who are looking for different skill set?
Okay, sure. I think in the past, people would have this demarcation between soft and hard skills. I would rather say technical skills and your soft skills. And I think is a people skill a soft skill or a technical skill? I think it crosses both. And I think the lines have got blurred more these days. Having soft skills and investing in them makes you more money than a technical skill. Now, a technical skill might be like programming software. This is a technical skill, or there are technical leadership skills. For example, how the process of hiring somebody and inducting them and nurturing them, training them, developing them, and helping them succeed has a lot of technical skills, which you might say are hard skills. But the most important part of that role is the soft skills, which is the people stuff. And I think you look at this, we're all working from home, and well, not all of us are, but most of us are having this work from home experience where we're using technology to communicate. Well, the technical skills are how to run the computer, how to handle the software when it works, when it doesn't work, how to get all the sound working, the videos working, how to present on video, how to communicate, how to get a point across, how to look at the camera. These are all technical skills. But if I don't have the soft people skills, all the technical skills in the world aren't going to help me, are they? So to me, you need both. They work hand in glove like this. They work like this. You can't have one without the other. But if I were to choose one or the other, well, no, I think you need both. You need to be comfortable with technology these days because everything is technology, isn't it? So the older people are less comfortable with technology, which is a technical skill, and the younger people grow up with, this stuff native. So our 3-year-old, 5-year-old, and 7-year-old all have their own iPhones, and they use them and they message us. True. They message us, and they have a Netflix. It's under my account, but they have Netflix, they have music, they have Spotify and YouTube, and it's set for their age, and they play games. So they play games, they watch shows, they do yoga. So we've got kids yoga, and this is 3, 5, and 7-year-olds. They just grow up with it. So their reality is very different from ours. So that's the technical skill. The soft skill is all the relationship stuff. And what makes the difference on a dream team or a dream relationship or a partnership is the soft skills between you. All the relationship stuff is a soft skill. All the emotional well-being is soft skills, isn't it? But if I don't have any technical skills, then I'm dependent on everyone else to have them. And then I'm just fully reliant on soft skills. So I think the real power is when you have both, like a partnership. That's it.
Thank you. That's great.
I give you another example. If you run a business, don't you need to know accounting? Don't you need to know about cash flow, debits and credits, and aging payables, aging receivables? Don't you need to understand the balance sheet? Don't you need to understand the capital and the cost of working capital, and all these other ratios are all part of the technical skills of running a business. So you need to understand accounting to work with an accountant. You need to understand the legal basics to work with a lawyer. That's technical. You need to understand marketing. Talk about technical. Today's marketing in a digital reality, if you can't understand Facebook marketing, YouTube marketing, Google keywords, and all these other aspects of it, how to do landing pages, how to do conversions, how to write headlines. Today, business owners who run businesses have to be copywriters. That's a technical skill, copywriting. So we can't afford to outsource everything to everyone else. We have to do a lot of this ourselves and have the technical capability to drive it. Like I was talking to a team leader recently, and I said, hey, dude, you have to learn Facebook marketing. You can't afford not to. You have to run seminars for your business. You have to get comfortable. And they said to me, oh, but I don't like the camera. I'm uncomfortable on camera. I said, well, that's something that you can develop, and it comes through practice and having the vision of, because they have a vision for their business, and, they've got a vision of having over 100 people in their organization in this year. So they got their work cut out. And I said, you're going to make this a whole lot easier if you get in there and do some of it yourself. They said, oh, but I got a team who does it. And I said, that's fine if you work with a team, but if you don't know how to do it, then how do you technically work with them from a position of authority? And how do you do new paradigm with them if all you're doing is abdicating to them? Because have you looked at an ad account on Facebook? Have any of you done that directly yourself? Have you looked at how complicated and sophisticated it is? It can scare the hell out of you. I can show you my ad account. I tell you, it takes a bit of mastery, but committing to mastery, you get to mastery by mastering the pieces. But you got to have a vision. The vision is the first most important thing, and then you break it down into chunks, and it's easy, especially if it's connected to your passion. So that's that, Victoria?
Thank you. That's great. Yeah, I think that's yes. I think the combination of both the soft skill and hard skills are important if we want to succeed more and to be able to be more adaptable in the future. Actually, now and now in the future, not just in the future.
Yep. So I think this is a good place to wrap it up.
Yeah.
And we talked about a lot of different subjects about why there's a leadership crisis and why everybody needs to step up to the leadership challenge. We talked about emotional well-being. We talked about the formula that most people don't follow in order to have a dream team, how important the dream team was. And this formula here is probably the most important one, because what it shows you is how your results are created through what you do, and your energy comes from your emotion. So if your emotion's stuck, your results will be stuck. And if you don't have the mental clarity because you're worried all the time, and you have these past negative experiences that get in the way, and you don't have a good strategy, and you don't have any tactics, and you don't have a good plan overall, then you're not going to get the results you want. And then it all has to be lined up with the vision. This is the most important slide of all of it, and what we specialize in is helping people to line all these pieces up. And then we have so many tools to help you do it, to measure where you are in the different areas, and then help you to optimize it. So thank you all for joining us today, and we're going to leave with a video. Anything you want to say in conclusion, Victoria?
So I want to thank you for the session and pouring your heart and being so passionate about the topic. And yeah, I think it has been a great session for me. We have a lot of people who thank you for your sharing, and Tanu was asking me to tell you that she was quite surprised that it's quite different from the last time that she came, which was about 2 weeks ago. What you did today, and so she really appreciate your what you have shared today. It has helped her a lot. And yeah, personally, when you talk about the personal vision, having a crystal clear vision to guide my life, to guide my career and business, that really, that even though this is not the first time I heard of it, but it really does help me to even further crystallize how important that is for me, so that I can have that as a guide, and to use that as my guide towards my results and my action. So I really appreciate that, and lead myself first so that I can be a better leader. So that's the summary I have for myself. And I'm just curious, anyone else who would like to contribute what you learned today, or you can either share it verbally, or you can text it on the chat. So if there's nothing else, Harrison, back to you. And I want to thank Li Xiang. Li Xiang has been at the back end supporting us with all the administrative stuff, and she's our registrar. Li Xiang, you want to say hi to everyone?
Hello, everyone. Good to see you here. So thank you for staying back, and thank you, Harrison. Yes, again for putting your heart out to share so much. I learned a lot, especially now you're talking about the technical, the soft skill and the hard skill. I have a new perspective of that. Thank you, and yeah, everyone have a good evening, and that's what I want to share. Thank you.
Thank you, Li Xiang. Over to you, Harrison.
Thank you. I also wanted to say that the skills that you'll have in hosting meetings, like this one is with a bunch of strangers, many of us never met each other before. And so a lot of our communication here is one way. Whereas if we have a team meeting where we're meeting with the same people regularly, weekly or daily, there's a different interaction that you'll have on your weekly and daily meetings. And a lot of people don't have these tools and processes to help people communicate on a team remotely and to get everyone to participate. So there are systems for that. And I'll be sending you some emails in the next few days with some tools and options, and a copy of the slides and a copy of the recording so you can download if you want them. And that will include the slides that we haven't shown today, because there's a lot of them in the set. So we'll send you a copy of the slides, copy of the recording, and a bunch of other resources, and we'll keep emailing you. We try not to email too much, but we do email a reasonable amount. And obviously, if you don't want to hear from us, feel free to unsubscribe. You can do that anytime, and we don't take it personally because we understand. So that's it from me. Thank you so much for coming. And I encourage you to step up to the leadership challenge and build those dream teams and create a vision for yourself that has a dream life in all areas. Thank you for coming. Look forward to getting to know you more in the future. And if you want to know more about Goldzone's programs and services, feel free to text Victoria or email her or call her or whatever you like. And she'll be happy to talk it through with you. Over and out. Thank you.